In this lecture, we are going to explore the idea of using polymorphic exceptions. And what this involves is really setting up the what function here as a virtual function, and this is going to allow it to use polymorphism. So we are going to mark this as virtual, and in all deriving classes, we are going to override it and make it do something more specific to the class that we are at. For example, at the level of warning, we are going to make it append a little message saying that it is a yellow warning. At small error, we are going to add a string that says it is orange, and at critical error, we are going to make this red. Something we did in the last lecture, but we are going to resolve all these things polymorphically. And when we hit the main function, that's where this is going to become really cool. We are going to set up a simple function to throw our objects. And when we loop around and catch the errors, we are going to use one catch handler, which is going to pass the parameter using a base reference. And the what method we call is going to be resolved polymorphically using our virtual functions that we have overridden in our inheritance hierarchy. This should really be nothing complicated if you went through the last chapter where we learned about polymorphism. We are going to head over to Visual Studio Code and actually see how we can do this. Here we are in our working folder. The current project is Polymorphic Exceptions. We are going to reuse the code from the last lecture because everything is really similar. We are just going to enable polymorphism to make these things work easier. So let's put in the code. We are going to steal everything. And we are going to open this up in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here. This is going to give us our file. The first thing we want to do is to enable polymorphism for our inheritance hierarchy here. The first thing we want to do is to mark our what functions as virtual. So let's do this. And we will have to mark our destructors as virtual as well, because this is a good practice as we saw in the last chapter. And we will go down and override the what function in our deriving classes. So we are going to say that this is a virtual function as well in warning, and we are going to mark this as an override. We can do this. And our destructor is not going to do anything specific, so we're going to leave this to be put in by the compiler. We are going to go to our small error function, and we're going to make this virtual, or small error is not a function, it's a class, sorry for that. But this is going to be an override as well, so let's make sure this is an override of what we had in our upstream class. And we are going to go down and make this a virtual function as well in critical error. And it is going to be an override of what we had in our upstream classes. This is really all we need to do to enable polymorphism for our class inheritance hierarchy. Now we can go to the main CPP file, and the function is going to remain the same, but we are going to remove all these catch handlers because we don't need them anymore. We can use one, which is going to take the parameter by base reference, and which one we call is going to be resolved polymorphically depending on the actual exception that was thrown from this function here. So let's build this and make sure that it is actually working. We are going to pass this through GCC. The build is going to be good, and we are going to try and run this. We're going to bring up a new PowerShell window. And if we run Rooster, we're going to see that at 2, we get a red. At 3, we get orange. At 4, we get a yellow. And these colors are being brought in polymorphically because the C++ runtime is deciding which what function to call at runtime by looking at the dynamic type of our exception parameter here. And this is really cool. You see that we were able to reduce the number of the catch blocks we did from 5 to a single one. And if you happen to have an even larger inheritance hierarchy, that's also going to work, and these exceptions are going to be resolved polymorphically, and this is really cool. This is all I had to share in this lecture, showing you that you can use polymorphic exceptions. And what this really involves is enabling polymorphism by marking your what functions as virtual. This is going to allow us to reduce the number of catch blocks that we have, and this is really cool. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to see that we can rethrow exceptions And we're going to see how we can achieve that. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.